Okay, good afternoon. So now we will start this final session of the workshop, and this session has been designed in a talk, and most of the discussion on the learning part has been over. And so first, the half an hour, I will give you a brief introduction about river science, which is a new concept, but not exactly new. Some of these things are already there, and I will introduce you. And then and then after that, we have talked with Professor Tandon sir about the basic concept of Anthropocene. And then and after the tea break, we will meet again and we will discuss about whatever is our observations or viewpoints are there with for the workshop. So first to start with these things about the river science. So it was part of the evening talk where our aim was to introduce you about some of the new topics. And because yesterday I could not come, I had some other meetings. So I decided to discuss in half an hour about this part, that what is this river science, what is this new things which is coming, and how a geologist or geoscience can play an important role about this part. So river science actually started, its origin is around that time 2004, when a group of the fluvial geomorphologists in USA, they sit down and then they discuss about the applied fluvial geomorphology and what is the position statement. And what they realized that for the management of a stream, the geomorphology is needed, need for geomorphologists, and there are different aspects are there. They have highlighted those things. And after 3 years, there was one major book came which is called as the River Science, and by the USGS. So it was started by the Geological Survey of India. And then slowly it has become a much more multidimensional aspect. So it has the geological elements and then interaction with all different aspects which relates the hydrology, ecology, and then the water pollutions, and all these aspects are there. And so that's for the beginning. And at the time, it was one talk I was given in 2012. So at the time, around 1 million sites were showing in the Google citation, and that was just the beginning was there. And if we see at that time, so by the 2012 itself, the development of the recognition has started. So the MSc program in river science, you can say the PhD fellowships in the river science program, and also the jobs which are there, and then also faculty position which are specific to the river science. So it was already in the notion which was come. And yesterday when I then searched that, we got 1.3 billion search of the thing. So the science has grown. I mean, that was the initial point was there when it was growing. Though its growth in India is limited, but if you see in many other universities, and some of the universities, there are the groups which have been defined as the river science group, and they were the like Erasmus Mundus joint PhD program, which has been defined within this preview of the river science, another university river science group, and all these things are there. Now we have the books on the river science. There are also organizations who are working on these things, and there are different organizations at the different university places is there. So the question is, what is river science, and then why the geology is related to that part. So river science is all about river effect, river processes and interaction, mainly these 4 aspects: hydrology, geology, chemical, and ecological aspect. So hydrological, geological, chemical is the water pollution and the chemistry aspect, and ecology is the biodiversity is that. And if you can recall that earlier stream management was limited to the chemical aspect. In India, it was the Ganga Action Plant, Yamuna Action Plant, they were all limited only towards the management of the pollutants. But now things have changed. And at the international level, it has been defined that these 4 aspects are needed. And now a term, river health, is used to define that if the river is able to function all 4 aspects of its processes, then only we can define that it is in a good health. 2 years back, Ministry of Environment and Forest has also decided, sorry, then all the river management application will be based on the river health aspects, and they have taken this thing. So things have been started in India. And the processes needs to be done at a different spatial and temporal scale. Especially in the earlier talk also I discussed from the grain size to landscape scale. When we change the scale, then all the major controlling parameters, processes, our observation, methodology, everything gets changed. And the temporal aspect is whatever we are seeing at the modern time scale. And second thing is that what is the trajectory, how the river is behaving in last few thousand years, few tens of thousand years. That will define the future of the river system. So all these things are important, and to derive these things, there is a needs to be developed the linkage between different river-related processes like floodplain process, hill slope process, channel processes, and how much is the connectivity in this part, and what is the relationship between the different components of the part. So many times in the newspaper you have seen that that the deforestation in the Himalayas is responsible for the flooding in the Ganga plain. So this is a geomorphic problem. This is not a settled equation. And geomorphic problem or research problem is, this is an unknown thing. So these kind of questions are there. How much is hill slope process are really affecting the river processes or not. So these are the process, these are the decision making things, these are the things directly related about taking the decision, but the process understanding leads with the geosciences. So to discuss a bit more, this is one of the figure I think I discussed earlier, that depends on the scale, our observation and all these things will be different. And it is not only that observations and this different parameters will be different, but the same parameter at the different scale also varies. This is a plot which is showing that at the kilometer scale, if we talk about this grain size and the discharge, so discharge increases in a river system, grain size decreases, which is a common process there. But if we reduce the scale up to 100 km, then the tributary influence will be clear, and then we can get a zigzag pattern. And if we further increase the scale, we will get this. We will get all the random patterns are there. So even we cannot use a single equation about a pattern. You can derive a downstream, you can derive an equation of the downstream pattern of discharge or grain size, which you can apply at the basin scale. It cannot be directly applied at the reach scale or these things, or the small scale. So not only the observations are there, same kind of observations needs to be tweaked in a different way, and that's why scale is the fundamental things are there, and the interaction of scale is one of the important parts. And this is the whole view of the river science, and these are, I will say that only some of the points are there. So river science, it is not limited to whatever we have understood about the meteorology, hydrology, and hydraulics aspect are there. Groundwater, surface water interaction, glaciology, especially for the Himalayan part, whole sediment supply which are governed by the geological and hill slope processes. Then its interaction in the system, hill slope part, which will be part of this fluvial geomorphology. And then geochemistry has now become a very important tool in the river science. And then measure control, remote sensing, land use, land cover. Of course, the modeling will be there. And then other aspects like ecology, water quality. It is a mixture of all these things. It is a combination of these things are there. So it's a multi-dimensional area is there. And one or two names will not be sufficient to work out on the river system. And that's why this is the area which is growing. These are the two classification approach I will highlight, and that was a major landmark in the fluvial geomorphology and which made a significant contribution in river sciences. The Rosen classification, it was published in 1994, and later on it came out as a book. And this classification, they had divided the rivers into different classes, and then for each classes, they have suggested the management practices. It has become so popular that if anybody will go for a job in a river management area, it will be expected that they must be knowing the Rosen classification, whether they are ecologists, whether they are the geochemist, or whether they are working on water pollutant, it doesn't matter. This is the fundamental things are there. So geomorphology has entered in the fundamental aspect about the river process understanding. This is the series of papers which came in early 2000, and then a book in 2005 where they club all these things. A river style framework of the classification is started from the Australia, New Zealand landscape, and then extended into many other countries including China, Japan, and Thailand. And in the last few years, a number of rivers in Europe and then USA has also adopted the methodology. It is again same, it is a geomorphic classification which is across the scale, which is started from landscape scale to valley scale to reach scale to geomorphic unit, hydraulic unit, and the grain size. And then on the basis of processes, it defined the river onto different aspects. And then for each of the river style, there are the different ways to manage those river system. And again, this is the major program, it has been accepted, and it is not limited to the geosciences, it is the people who are working on the river, they are adopting this part. This is just one of the examples that if if we have to manage the river which has already been degraded, then it is the first thing is needed is that what is the trajectory of the river system, what are kind of geomorphic elements are there which will define the trajectory, whether the river has crossed the threshold, that means the process understanding leads to geomorphic threshold is needed, and that will define where to reach this part. So whole, this stream management is a billion-dollar industry. There are few papers in Nature also which highlight those aspects, and all these things are now dependent in the geomorphology, which is the basic components are there. This is the small screenshot of the New South Wales government web page, which has highlighted that they are using the river style, and then it is the government machinery which is highlighting that geomorphology is important. In the stream management, in all the departments who are dealing with the stream management, this one position of geomorphologist is must in all these things are there. So it has been embedded in the decision-making processes. And now with this brief scenarios of the, about the global, I will give a small highlight about the India, that what are the things which have been known and where the geoscience people can play a major role in this part. There's a huge amount of challenges are there, and we all know about the health of the river, and then this curve which is showing that a good amount of population which is dependent on the different river basins, and these are the water potential which is there. And to highlight only one or two points, I will discuss only first point, which is the flood hazard. And this is a scenario which is the older data, but you can see that that's in 1954 to 89, more than 2,500 crore rupees have spent. And then this area affected has increased after that. This lower curve is only for Bihar, and this upper one is for the India. The population affected has increased, and which sometimes suggested that it may be because people have encroached in the river space, which is true, but the area effect has also increased in the flood affected, and the total damage has increased exponentially. So after spending that much of the amount, what are the reasons? And this, and now there are the reports, and there are also UNDP reports which suggest that what is needed is the process-based understanding of the river system, more bringing more data related to the earth systems and the physical state of the rivers are there. So the need has already been there, and then it has been stressed at some of the point. In the 3-4 example, I will say that some of the things which have been done, but these are only, but these things are not limited. It's only few of those things are there. First thing is that flood hazard, it is not specific at a given area. It is very well, and we all know that floods in the Bihar plains is much more extensive compared to the UP plains. And if we see those rivers, that will show the difference, because in the UP plains, if you see the major river, they are in size, whereas in the Bihar plains, they are shallow and silted channels are there. And that is because of the reason, if you take a simple estimation of this, the stream power, unit stream power values, the unit stream power values in these plains are much lower compared to the upstream areas. And the sediment supply, the yellow colors are indicating the part. And the sediment supply is significantly higher compared to this part. So high sediment supply, low stream power means extensive channel siltation, and that will make the channel shallower, and then will cause the more amount of flooding. So it's a simple geomorphic processes which are responsible for the very different scenarios of different tributaries in the Ganga river basins. And that's why the sediment supply is higher, because in one of the plots Sonam has suggested there are the high stream power values in those particular river basins, and which are related to the topography, and which again related with the lithological strength and the active tectonics processes are there. So ultimately everything are related. So the thing is that how well we then connect these aspects. So geomorphic manifestation, which is there in terms of processes, it is there in terms of the aggregation degradation processes, and that is related with stream power, and then ultimately the basic things are there. So things are related with this aspect. If we take another example at the small scale, we all know that whenever active faults are there and river is crossing those river, it makes the make the river slope gentler. And whenever the slope will become gentler, then the chances of flooding will be there. So then it means that this active tectonics may also affect, and that will highlight. So along the river, this is a flood affected river system. This is a Bagmati river in the north Bihar. It is an old work, and which highlights that flood is not everywhere. Flood is only in some of the pockets are there. It means that some of the local things are also controlling the processes. It is not everything are there. And at some of the station, at this station, we have the hydrological data, which also suggests these things. So at the upstream site, at this site, the discharge is higher than the downstream station, but the flood affected area, you can see the average inundation period is 3 times more, and the depth of inundation is also amount twice. So the less amount of water is there, which is the bankfull discharge, but the higher amount of flooding is there, which means the local controls are there, and this data set, there's a detailed work was there, which is showing this active tectonics are affecting the flood hazard scenarios. And then we have to bring those understanding in the river management application as well. Same thing, this is a graben area which is subsiding, and because of that thing, there are a number of wetlands are there, and then abundant channels are there, and then extensive amount of flooding is then present in this part. Second aspect related to geomorphology is another aspect of the geomorphology is the drainage pattern. At the basin scale, it is whatever amount of the water will be distributed, and then there's some amount of water will be infiltrated. Whatever left is called as a rainfall axis or runoff. But the distribution of runoff is then governed by the drainage network. And in one of the method, Rodrigues and Naterbo, in 1979, they have used the Markov channel and then defined that we can use this drainage network to define the hydrological response of a river system. It means if we can define that whatever rainfall is there, and in the 2 different river basins, if this drainage network structure is different, we can have the different kind of discharge at the downstream season. These are ratios you are all very well aware of, and that help to interpret that what kind of patterns are there. And these ratios may be used in a different kind of equation. So GIH is word used for the geomorphic instantaneous unit hydrograph. Hydrograph is the graph between the discharge and time. Unit is for the unit time. And when you take the instantaneous, when you are interested in the hydrological response, you take the time as a 0, like indicating to 0, which will suggest that if there is an instantaneous rainfall, what will be the shape of the hydrograph. In some of the river basin, it may be flattened, it may be peaked. And these kind of equation will help. You can solve this equation using the Markov channel, and it provides this equation. So this was the work which was done on the Bagmati river, and which has suggested that we can generate this hydrograph even in the absence of the rain gauge station. Otherwise, rain gauge stations are must to generate the hydrograph. So this is one of the application which can come from the geomorphology towards the management. And second thing is that there was some of the observed data was there on the basis of the 50-year return periods were then derived, which was come as 3298. And GIS based estimation was very close to the observed data set, where the earlier model which was used by the Ganga Flood Control Commission, which was very much away from this part. So more inclusion of the geomorphology helps in the management applications. And it is not only the data, but this equation will also help to understand what is the role of the individual parameters. And this analysis has shown that in general RL, so x-axis is the RL here, this is RB and RA. You can see that this part is very sensitive. Y-axis is the QP, is the peak discharge value. So if your RL value will increase from 2 to 6 or 2 to 8, then there is a significant jump in the QP values are there. And that will help to explain the variabilities in the flood hazard. So besides tectonics, topography, this is another component is there. Same river, it has 2 major tributaries. One of the river causes flooding at the downstream region, another river doesn't causes flooding. And if we see the area is almost same, there is not much a major difference. Length is exactly same, but the RL values is then significantly different, which shows that it is the distribution of the runoff which makes the difference, and then we can explain the distribution of flooding is there. So flooding is not only hydrological process, or it is not limited to that part. There are a number of surface processes are involved, and then geomorphology, tectonics, geology can play an important role towards this management part is there. So these are the distribution, and then we have discussed that there are the number of these things may be used. And not only that, once you have the drainage network, and then in the absence of rain gauge station, you can derive the hydrograph of all the different streams, and then you can find out that which of the tributary will cause flooding and which of the tributary will not cause flooding. So this kind of classification will then provide a potential for, will define the potential of the flood contributing area. Whereas a simple flood hazard zonation only talks about that what is happening, but this kind of max also discuss about what are the causes in this part. So some of the limitations are there. Then one of the process I will say which is also related with the hazard aspect and channel avulsion. You all know about the shifting and the channel avulsion in the braided rivers condition, which is governed by the ratio of the slope of the channel and slope of the potential channel of this part. Slope is governed by anything. It may be by the vertical movement or it may be by the siltation process. This is one such example where this channel has been moved in this part. And this study has suggested that it was because of the extensive siltation and then some of the deformation patterns which has changed the DM slope, yet was responsible. And you can also see the impact. Earlier the river was flowing in this direction, so the bridge has been planned. And before the bridge was commissioned, the river has changed its course and now it is flowing parallel to the river. So there's a lots of stresses or lots of unpredictability in the system is there. And there is a need to include the hydrology and geomorphology together to have a better understanding and plan these things are there. Same thing in 2008, there was a major flooding and the whole river has been shifted in this part. So, and it causes the extensive amount of flooding, millions of people were affected, but the amount of water was only 40% of the discharge thing. So it was not a hydrological flood, it was only a shifting which in geomorphology we call channel avulsion. And we all know that river Yakosi is dynamic, so it is geomorphologically known as dynamic, but it was embedded in the river system, which means that all the sediment was being silted within the channel. That has led to the silted amount. So this is a map, this is the observed field-based data, and this green color is the higher elevation area, which is the river, and the seepage channel is there at the lower elevation site, and this is based on the total station data set which has been converted. So the river is flowing at higher elevation, and then there is a seepage channel which has a lower elevation. These are the cross section which is showing the floodplain is at the lower elevation and the river bars are at the higher elevation, river surface there. So whenever the breach will happen, then the whole water will started flowing towards the floodplain and it will not flow. This is called as a super elevation condition in geomorphology, and these kind of condition, mapping of these kind of condition are must to define or to define the potential of any site. This in one of the paper, then all these different sites have been mapped that these are the potential site where such kind of avulsion may happen, and even a relatively small amount of discharge can cause a significant amount of the damage. So one thing is about the hazards. In the river hazards, there are the different kind of roles which may be played by the geology or geosciences. Then the major impact is the water or river is not only conducive water, but the sediment is an important part. And now it has been realized is many meeting that it is a sediment is equally important. And for the sediment dynamics, it all governs by the geological and geomorphic processes part. In 3-4 slides, I will highlight these things. And this is one of the data set on the basis of geochemical analysis. And Krishnaswamy and Singh from PRL, they have analyzed the SMND data set of the different river basins and they estimated the erosion rate in this part. So it's all based on the geochemistry based derived sediment load is there. There's not much sediment data available for these are the international rivers, and then most of the data is classified. But it is the geochemistry which helps us to understand the variability in the sediment supply in the river system. Now further within Himalaya, that if we look for an individual river basin, this is a Alaknanda sub-basin, I will say, and these are the different litho units within these areas. And every litho unit has its signature in terms of samarian neodymium isotope data, as well as the strontium data set are there, which helps to do the fingerprinting of the sediment. And this is the observed data set which is suggesting that along the Alaknanda river, this 100% was sediment at the upstream. It is coming from the this Himalaya, and but after that, once the river started flowing in the higher Himalaya, then the contribution of the Tethys Himalaya has been reduced to very less, and it has reduced to 0. So by the time it is flowing in the higher Himalaya regions, there's no sediment, no major sediment contribution is coming from the Tethys Himalaya, and then in the less Himalaya, there are some amount of the contributions are there. So you can map that what are the hotspot of the sediment zone, where the sediment contribution is more, and then how much is coming. Not only the spatial variability, but you can look for the terrace deposits, you can date the terraces, and then you can work out that how this particular distribution mechanism or the erosion process were different at the different time. So this is the modern data set which was derived on the basis of modern sand. There was some sediments which were available, which are known as the 1970, there was a mega flood event there, and then, so there's what desert, and then These are the sediment from the different river terrace horizon. And it's showing that there was lots of variability in the system. So the sediment contribution has moved from Lesser Himalaya to Higher Himalaya. It means different kind of changes were happening. And in 70s, it was suggested that the deforestation was the major event, and which also support this aspect because of the deforestation around that time, the Lesser Himalaya was in divide of the vegetation, and it must have supplied higher amount of sediment. And we have seen that a modern time period, the Lesser Himalayan contribution is close to 35%, whereas in 1970, it was more than the 50% things are there. So some of the decision making which can also be possible, which are not possible through any other means. And then there is a role for the geology in terms of the sediment dynamics. That's another approach. One was the geochemistry based approach. Second is the physical based approach, and where the steam power distribution may be generated, and then you can map that what are the areas which are which can transport more amount of the sediment, and then these are the source area for the sediment supply. What is needed at actually combination of both the things. So we can merge the geochemistry based approach and the physical based approach. We can have a better understanding of the sediment erosion process and the sediment dynamics, which is currently very weak of the Himalayan part. And though it is well known and it has been realized by the decision makers, and whenever we go for the meeting, that sediment dynamics is the major problem in the Himalayan river. It is not the water. Water management is easy. And this is here where the geothermal sea will be there. So maybe how much time is there? A few minutes, then I will present this some of the challenges. So I have highlighted one of the issues where geology can play an important role. 2 more, okay. So very quickly, there was a few things have been recently come out that how to define the river space. Because policymakers wants to know that whatever is the river space is there, which is needed to manage the river system, then it has to be provided that space. And one of the ways to define the floodplain using the geomorphic approach. Another way is to define the floodplain using the through the hydraulic analysis through the return period flood. So geomorphic approach work which is suggested, and this is one of the news report from the cutting, which is suggested that at the time of this CWG village as well as the Akshardham temple, there was lots of controversy because it was suggested that these buildings were there in the floodplain, and that's why flood has affected all those places are there. So even though all these architecturally marvelous buildings are there, but the space is equally important, and then geomorphology is important part. Second thing is that for the management of river, it is the most important question has now become is that what is the water requirement by the river. We all know that what is required by the agriculture and for urban setup or for industry, but we had not yet estimated what is the water requirement for the river. And now when the rivers are there in the deteriorated stage, then E-flow, which is defined as the water requirement for the river, is become the important process. Few years back, High Court, Allahabad High Court had put all this stay on all the construction management, and they have suggested unless the E-flow will not be provided to the river, no other construction will be provided. So this estimation has a significant impact in terms of economy, and then economic, political, and then the infrastructure point of view. And then estimation is a multidimensional area, and geomorphology here has a very important part, because for sediment dynamics, sediment movement, river must need a particular amount of the water, and that estimation can be made if our understanding of sediment transport will be good. And the final things is coming in terms of this management. As I told that now the major challenge is that is not only the hydrology and geomorphology, but how the ecology, all these three things are connected. And this is the basic aspect of river science has become ecology-based management. And Ministry of Environment and Forest, so the Government of India has also adopted this part. And very quickly to show that we all know that the different kind of channel patterns occur. That is because of the different kind of water, flux, slope variability. We can work out the hydrology and geomorphology relationship, but ultimately it also affects the ecology of this part. So you can see that different names are anabranching, braided, distributary, meandering is written, and these are the work which is showing the ecological aspect, food chain length, nutrient spiraling, species diversities. So if the channel pattern will change, whole ecosystem within the river system will change. And we all know that all rivers are continuum, so if amount of water or amount of sediment will change in a system, then this river system will change from one channel pattern to another channel pattern, and it will change the whole ecosystem. So whole ecology-based management actually needs to be based on the geomorphic aspect, and that's why the Rosen classification or the river style classification are now the foundation of the stream management in these different parts. This is the aspect, only one of the highlight of the geomorphic part. We all know that from meandering to braided, it moves from lower energy to high energy. This slope and discharge, it has been combined in this plot. We have a stream power and the sediment. But this change in the geomorphic state is not smooth, but it happens in a stepwise thing, which is called as a geomorphic threshold. And in the same system, if we have a Duke kind of system, and we have a same kind of change. So amount of stream power and sediment load change is the same in these two systems. In this system, well will move from this point to this point, and it remains in the meandering system. This kind of system will move from this point to this point, so meandering system will change into a braided kind of system. Same kind of hydrological change can cause a very different kind of geomorphic responses, and that's a geomorphic problem. So hydrology is not sufficient. Hydrology is very essential to work with the driving forcing, but it is not sufficient to understand this part. And that's what I will try to finish this part. We already have the climate models. They have some of the uncertainties, but at least they are there. And lots of talk at the global scale, at the political aspect. They are there in terms of management. Based on the climate model, hydrological models has already been developed, and they are using the climate models to work out the average variability and the future forecasting, and also the rare events, extreme events are there. But what is lacking is the geomorphic model. And the geomorphic model which needs the understanding of the sensitivity, geomorphic threshold, connectivity aspects, and only when there will be the geomorphic model, then only all these things may be connected with the ecological models are there. So there is a need to work on this aspect, and it is where the geoscience has to play a major role, which is currently lacking. And only 3 slides, then I will suggest that what is the intake at the government level about the role of the geology. So in 2004, there was one of the meeting where the stress was there to include the geological data, but not much emphasis there. Major changes has happened in one of this Live Ganga program, where in this interdisciplinary project, the geomorphology was considered as the major event. And then when this Ganga River Basin Management Plan was created in 2010, and which was there that the IIT Consortium will provide a river basin management plan. There was this number of groups are there, and then this fluvial geomorphology group was one of the different groups are there. And that was, in fact, the first time where all this interdisciplinary culture has been evolved. So from Ganga Action Plan, Yamuna Action Plan, this was the major change are there. Though things are still moving in terms of discussion, but this in terms of the approach and then intake of the decision making and about the role of different aspect of the river aspect has already been there. So to manage the future of the dynamic physical state, and especially the rivers of the Himalayan are very dynamic, there is a need to include all this data set, and it can be done. So I will finish this part, and what I highlighted that in the river science, which is important, which has already been noted, and there are the different dimensions of geosciences which can play a very important role. And it may not be limited. We can work out, and some more things are there. So geomorphology, hydrology, geology, active tectonics, geochemistry, remote sensing, and extensive fieldworks are needing. And the researcher or students are already trained on this part. Only thing is that how well they get connect with the problems of the aspect. And that will lead to the river future, which is now already been defined that this is the era of the river repairs are there. So things have started moving, and that was the aim to introduce you about those talks, and I will finish it here. Okay, thanks. So if there is any talk or so any questions, I will, yeah. I'm already 4 minutes behind.
So you have said that we don't know how much water is required for a river, like we know for agriculture lands, and then exactly what we mean by that, because river also flood. Are we going to add that part, or just we want to quantify that channel ka width and all?
So when we define the E-flow, it has to be defined for the different season. So it has to be defined in a hydrograph mode. Every month, what is the requirement? For the flood purpose, the requirement will be different. For the lean period, it will be different, and it has to be defined in four aspects. Geomorphology is one of the aspects, and of course hydrology will be there, And then ecology, because it will define that whatever the biodiversity will be required, then how much inundation, water depth, and velocity will be required. And in meetings, it has been realized that whatever water requirements are coming from the geomorphic aspects, that is the water requirement already meeting for all these things. So the fundamental process is the geomorphic process, where the management of the geomorphic structure, like if a braided river is there, then you have to also define how much water is needed to maintain the braided. If you reduce the water, it may convert into meandering system, which will have a very different ecosystem is there. So that's one is the channel pattern, and second, of course, the sediment dynamics, sediment continuity.
That will be depend on the annual variability.
Annual variability. Season to work at the monthly basis, it has to be defined.
Thank you.
Sir, I just want to know how to compute the channel connectivity over channel connectivity.
Channel connectivity, actually, with paucity time, I have not discussed. This is now another one of the major hot areas there. And then, computation of channel connectivity, there's two aspects: hydrological connectivity and geomorphic connectivity. And then again, then how are you going to define for your research purpose, whether you are defining in terms of connectivity of the flux transfer, which is called as the functional connectivity, or it is only the connection between the different compartment, which is the structural connectivities are there. There are many papers now have come which has defined that you can use, recently Morcelli's paper from Italy, which has defined that you can take an average slope and then the area to define that how much flux is coming, and then what is the stream power it will be there to cross whatever the roughness is there. So take the data set on the basis of surface roughness and the flux, which is used as a proxy for the otherwise rhyme, where the area has been used as a proxy for the flux, it can be computed.
Flux means sediment flux?
Sediment, so it depends. If for geomorphic connectivity, it is the sediment flux, and for hydrological connectivity, it is water flux. And the connectivity structure will be different for the different fluxes. And for sediment, it will be different for suspended load and the bed load. So again, everything depends on what is the research question. The connectivity itself is a very complex issue, but at present, it is the most important part of the geomorphic processes.
Can this be computed by using only DEM or?
Yeah, DEM is one of the important data cited there, but that is not sufficient. So data needs to be interpreted or incorporated with the processes. Processes means the dynamics aspect. And that will be governed by the threshold condition. If for the movement of the different kind of grains, you have to identify what are the different kind of geomorphic thresholds needed to transport that sediment. So all these things will be needed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are already teaching a lot of these components that you are saying. We have an entire paper on river restoration. One of the problems we are facing, and this has happened before in our country, that large-scale and topographic maps were not available. And then the government came out with the open OSM policy. So the most dynamic of our rivers, the data is restricted because of lots of issues. So can the geoscience community together at least push for some release of such data so that students, researchers, they can at least model? And otherwise, we are all restricted to the WRIS data, which is south of the Vindhyas and down. And we lose out on this entire huge system that is up there.
Yeah, that is a major problem. It is going on at the different platform. It has been raised. And some of the time it has been discussed. So in the Ganga River Basin Management, some of the data was provided, and it was specifically for all that project work. So we can see that some of the openings are there, but the limitations are there. What is needed in terms of science that rather than being dependent on the part, work on the different practices. It means that new set of methodologies, new set of data, which is a satellite data, is now available. And now we can see that there are a number of papers which have come about the hydrological analysis using the satellite data. So future will be different, that the source of data will not be limited to one part. The data source may come from the different things. And that is where one of the growth of the science will be there, the data analytics part.
Sir, and also we are looking at using vegetation for river restoration. So I don't think the CWC has yet come out with a framework or policy guidelines for that. So possibly we can help
yeah, of course, they're all the, in fact, CWC only deals with the waters, and whenever it moves to other areas, floodplains, vegetation, all these things, there's almost no understanding as now the sensitivity is there. People have realized that river space and then all the process interaction is needed. But at the geoscience community, they also develop some tools which can directly answer their questions. Many times we keep on talking at the longer time scale, few thousand time scale, or those bigger only at the catchment scale, that also it will not be there. So of course there is a lots of need is there to work out the specific research questions, and right now there is not much understanding.